What's up guys, welcome to this review of Batman Hush, based on Batman Hush, the comic book or graphic novel, whatever you want to call it. This instance, it's in the DC animated universe. I can't remember what its overall name is, but it's very much part of that universe. Batman teams with Catwoman when a mysterious new villain called Hush shows up on the scene, and that's kind of how the film unravels from there. Who is Hush? What's he up to? Why is he doing all this? They're trying to investigate that. It focuses very much on Batman being the detective for the most part. But there's also the side storyline of Batman and Catwoman's relationship. So what did I think of the film? I thought it was quite good actually. Batman Hush, not one of my favourite Batman graphic novels. I have read it. In fact, I think it's a little overrated to be honest. But one of the things I liked about this is that it's not just a straight up adaptation of Batman Hush. Yes, it takes all the story beats from Batman Hush, mostly, and it is essentially an adaptation of that, but the way in which it connects to the animated universe that they've already got, linking in certain characters and events and mentions from past films, is really quite interesting. It means that if you're a fan of the Batman Hush comic book or graphic novel, you're going to come in here, see a few little surprises here and there. And on the same scale though, because it doesn't just adapt Batman Hush, it actually makes some huge differences to Batman Hush. If you're a big fan of Batman Hush, you're probably going to hate some of the changes and differences they've made here. Personally, I actually liked some of the changes. There's a huge change towards the end of the film, which a lot of fans are going to be annoyed at or frustrated by. But personally, I think it makes sense, the change that they've done. It means that if you're a fan of the comic book and graphic novel, you're actually getting a bit of a surprise here. It actually works pretty well in this universe. It's a little how they've done The Walking Dead, how they're adapting the story beats, but they're changing bits here and there so that even fans of the original can enjoy it. They've done that here, basically. And again, some fans will like it, some won't. Personally, I liked it, but I'm not a huge fan of the original anyway. So what this means is that the storyline in the film is a bit more streamlined than the one in the graphic novel. In the one in the graphic novel, he's constantly going from suspect to suspect, whereas in this one, it's a bit more, it makes a bit more sense, it's a bit more slimmed down because it is a film, it's not a graphic novel, it's only got so much time it can fill, but it's also much easier to follow. So in Batman Hush the graphic novel, there's, without going into spoilers, there are moments where it tries to throw in a curveball and say, oh, this is not what you expected. Whereas in this, that's kind of thrown out, so it is a much more linear, much more understandable and accessible version of the story. And again, some people won't like that. But like I said at the beginning, there are two real focuses of the story here. On one hand, you've got the Batman investigating Hush, then you've got the Batman-Catwoman relationship, which ties much more into the animated universe that they've got. The problem is, the Batman Hush storyline, it's only really interesting at the beginning, and then towards the end. The middle, not so much. It's not boring, it's not bad, it just feels like, right, this is just an excuse to have these characters do something, basically. Whereas the Batman-Catwoman stuff is actually quite interesting, focusing on their relationship, how Batman obviously knows who Selina Kyle is, knows who Catwoman is, but Catwoman doesn't know Batman's secret identity in this film. So it deals with that in a way, but it also shows you how they've got different ideals, different approaches to what they do. Obviously Catwoman, not exactly a villain, not exactly a hero either. So it really delves into that, and it's quite interesting. Much more interesting than the actual Hush storyline, in my opinion. And it wraps up pretty nicely as well, without going into spoilers. But just speaking of the ending briefly, the two storylines I do think merge well towards the end, and they have some good resolutions. Again, there are surprises in there. If you're a fan of Batman Hush, you're going to be caught off guard by the reveals and revelations. And the whole Batman-Catwoman storyline, I think, comes to a pretty satisfying, understandable conclusion. And I'm interested to see where this animated universe goes from here. There are also some decent action scenes in there. One scene, I'm not going to go, I'll go into that in the spoilers. But yeah, there are some good action scenes in there. It's not just a detective mystery investigation film. But this is a Batman animated movie at the core. It ties into the DC universe. There are a lot of good, great characters in there. It feels like these are the definitive versions of these characters in many ways. However, like the graphic novel, there are a lot of cameos of other characters from the DC universe, a lot of Batman villains popping up here and there. A lot of it feels shoehorned in, it feels a little unnecessary. Unlike the graphic novel, they have taken some of them out and they've minimized some of their appearances a bit. But what this does is it means that it feels like this universe is really fleshed out and that there's actually more going on than the central storyline that we're seeing here. So that's good, it's interesting, it makes the world believable and it feels lived in. But again, it just feels like you're putting in these characters just for the sake of their going, oh, it's that person, oh, there's that guy. It's like, not entirely necessary maybe. You could have potentially came up with someone brand new maybe, but they haven't done that. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's not necessarily a good thing. Some of these cameos can, however, come across as a little distracting and unnecessary. At the same time, there are some characters, because of how brief an appearance they make in here, feel a little underwritten. So it's not a spoiler to say that the Joker's in this film. His character, very briefly in this film, it feels really unnecessary at times, and this is going into the other point that I was just making. But then there are other characters like Thomas Elliot who come into this film. Thomas Elliot, a key character in the Batman Hush graphic novel. Here, he feels completely underwritten, completely underdeveloped, and a lot of fans are going to hate what they've done with this character, the fact that this character is depicted in such a way. Again, I'm not going to go into spoilers just yet. And linking into this, the reveal about Hush, about who Hush is, what Hush's background is, what his motivations are. I actually liked what they've done here. It is different from the graphic novel. That's a light spoiler. So some people are going to hate that. Other people might like it. Personally, I liked it. I think they made a lot of sense with what they're doing. I think it was much more satisfying conclusion and reveal than what was in the graphic novel. So to move on about production, this is an animated movie. The problem I have with a lot of the DC animated movies that come straight to home video is that they look a little cheap. They don't look like cinematic films. They look more like just TV episodes. The animation does look like it's done on a budget. This one actually looks a little better than some of the most recent ones, but still it's like it's not on par with other animated movies, and that's really disappointing. Hopefully they step their game up. I know that it is home video, it hasn't got the huge budget of other animated movies, but still, it's 2019, you kind of have to up your game a little bit here, DC, because it's not looking good, it's not on par with other films. So yeah, that's disappointing that they're still doing animation in this style, in this look. As for the voice acting, this is really hit or miss. Some of the voice acting is really good, some of it's not so good. And it's not that I dislike who they've cast in the roles, I think they've actually done a good job at the casting. But it feels like a lot of the actors were just given a script and they were called on the phone and they were just reading it as they were doing it, rather than actually being there performing together. It comes across sometimes where there's a lack of emotion and a lack of investment in there. But again, I like the individual cast members, I like what they've done, but it never really meshes very well sometimes. Yeah, it's odd. Linking in with the animation a bit, the visuals are a little on the bland side. This is a Batman film, so it doesn't have to be like the most visually stunning and gorgeous and colourful and bright film ever, but it is just very typical dark factories and warehouses and stuff like that. It feels like they haven't really used their imagination much when it comes to the locations and environments. And again, that links into the animation on how they're doing it on a budget. Maybe they're just using old assets, bringing them in, I don't know. That being said, there is some good cinematography. Of course, it's an animated film, so the cinematography is a little iffy. It's not quite the same as a feature film, a live action film. But they have used some certain shots and angles from the graphic novels and the comic books, really some iconic moments in there. There's a shot where Batman and Catwoman are embracing one another, for example, a very famous shot. It's really well done. There are some good cinematography moments and elements in the film. And the film's really well paced and well edited as well. It's about an hour 25, I think it is. Never boring throughout its run. It feels like it's got a point, it's doing it, it's just going straight to it. And yeah, no fluff, no extra added material. Maybe there's a couple of things that could have cut out or trimmed down here or there that were a little unnecessary, like some of the cameos perhaps. But the film is never boring, it's always enjoyable, and I liked it quite a bit because of that. So that's what I thought of Batman Hush, the movie. I liked it. It was surprising because the Batman Hush graphic novel, not one of my favourites. I think it's a little overrated. So I do recommend it. There are some surprises in there, good action. It is a Batman movie at the end of the day, and it's a pretty good Batman movie. If you liked what you saw here today, subscribe to my channel. I'd really, really appreciate that. You subscribe to my channel, it'll help me grow my channel, it'll help me make more content. You can also give me a thumbs up just to show some sort of appreciation. I really appreciate that. And of course, leave a comment and feedback down below. Let me know what you think of Batman Hush. And of course, go to Twitter and Instagram, follow me at @the_Grant Burton if you like. Until next time though, that's all I've got to say without going into spoilers, because right now, I'm going into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Batman Hush, or if you haven't read the graphic novel or whatever, go away, do that, come back, watch the rest of this, because right now, full spoilers, you've been warned. So the big thing about the film is that Hush is the Riddler. Yeah, if you've read the graphic novel, you know that's not what happens at all. Thomas Elliot, who I mentioned earlier in this review, is Hush. So they've completely done a curveball and swerved away from that. One of the reasons Thomas Elliot in this film feels so underwritten and so underutilized is because he dies like a third of the way through the film and never brought back again. He's legitimately dead, so you only actually see him speak like twice in the whole film. So, yeah. Why have they made this change? Why make it the Riddler? To be honest, I don't know. I think it's just to be a little... I think it is for the sake of surprise. I think it is for the sake of giving fans of the graphic novel a little bit of a different experience. So, yeah, it's interesting how they've done it. Personally, I like the change. I've never been a fan of Thomas Elliot or Hush. And the change, they've actually gone into Riddler's backstory. They've done something here which explains it a bit better. And it does make sense in this universe. It ties into this universe much better as well, I think. So one of the things that they've cut out of this completely is Two-Face. In the graphic novel, it's revealed about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through, something like that. It's been a while since I've read it. But Two-Face has a key part to play in the graphic novel because Thomas Elliot, Hush, performs surgery on him to fix his disfigured face. And then Two-Face takes on the mantle of Hush as like a trick to get the attention away from the real Hush and to get Batman's attention. None of that's in this. So I think one of the reasons none of that's in this is because if you're reading the graphic novel, you might think, oh, Two-Face is Hush. And that could cause some confusion. Maybe it's also just a big element of story that doesn't necessarily fit into the overarching Hush storyline. Because at the end of the day, it's a Two-Face element. You could easily remove that and still have the mystery of who's Hush. So, yeah, I get why they've removed that. I'm glad they removed that. I never was a fan of that. So, yeah. But again, big fans of the graphic novel might not like that change, might not like that omission. Two-Face is, however, in the film very, very briefly for like 5-second cameo on like a still image. But, yeah, he hasn't got the reinvigorated face, let's say. He's still Two-Face. I mentioned earlier there was a big action scene that I really liked. Clayface. Clayface, one of my favourite Batman villains. I'm really hoping that we see a live action Clayface at some point. There's a cool action scene in this film where Batman and Jim Gordon have to take down Clayface, and it's really creative. They have to use hose pipes to take him down. I just thought it was really well done. Good creative, good use of sound as well. And yeah, I just really liked that scene. I thought it was pretty cool, so I wanted to give it a shout out. And that's all I've got to say about Batman Hush. I like the changes they made from the graphic novel. I thought it was a really good, enjoyable film, and I do recommend it, especially if you've been following the DC animated universe that they've got going. The name of which I can't remember. It might just be the DC animated universe. So, yeah. Subscribe to this channel. Follow Twitter, Instagram, @the_Grant Burton. Yada, yada, yada. You know the drill. Thanks for watching.